Good to see you in the chat. So we're going to talk about woke Chick-fil-A. And also, real quick, I also want to talk about this, the Bud Light and Disney and how that kind of ties in with them, particularly the issues that those companies are seeing right now. Because right now, you're having massive issues with these other companies that are just really being told off. In fact, there's a great article which I found about how Bud Light, they're so hated that their truck drivers are being flipped the bird and called slurs. I know they're probably dropping some hard F bombs for shipping out Bud Light. And listen, while the truck drivers do nothing wrong themselves personally. They are trying to make everybody feel bad for the distributors and their local bottlers, but frankly, Anheuser-Busch bought them on themselves. There are consequences to their actions, and boo-hoo. Yes, I get that there's people down the chain and there's jobs on the line here, but they should have thought about that before they let a woke executive into their system. This is the problem. And this is the key to what I'm going to talk about with Chick-fil-A. When you let this into your system, it is a poison which eventually kills you. It eventually ends up killing the entire corporation, destroying those jobs, destroying those families, destroying those companies. When you let this into your system, it is toxic. It may not kill you today, it may not kill you tomorrow, but it's like smoking a pack a day. Eventually, you're going to get lung cancer and you're going to frickin' die. So yeah, so that's where I'm going with this tonight and Chick-fil-A. So, and listen, I personally am going to boycott Chick-fil-A over this, but I'm not going to ask anybody to do that with me. I'm not going to say, hey, you guys have to do that with me, but I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I'm taking a strong stance on this, because I do believe this is something you actually need to fight instead of letting it into your system. So obviously, people are already calling out Chick-fil-A over this culture of belonging, this new policy for DEI. And what is DEI? DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those of you may know, obviously, I did special district law. That's what I did for almost a decade. But after that, I was in-house counsel for several years. In fact, I was even serving as in-house counsel over here in Korea, working remotely. So I know all about these policies, and these policies are absolutely the end of a corporation. And there's a lot of reasons why. But just to bring those up, let's look at Disney's policy, right? So this is Disney's policy. And you can see when we're going to go to the Chick-fil-A policy, which is over here, right? It's going to look a lot like the Disney policy and what they're saying. Talking about an inclusive, respectful world, right? Talking about recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce, fostering a welcoming and respectful culture, creating content that resonates with a global audience, and collaborating with community organizations to make industries more accessible, as if they weren't accessible already. So these are all issues here. When you really focus on what this means to them and what it comes down to, what this really means is hiring people who are not qualified, actively discriminating against certain racial groups, including people who are Caucasian, people who are Asian, right? Because they're overqualified, they're over capable. And breaking up and segregating employees in the company into groups, right? Into trans groups, into Latino groups, Black groups, and saying, okay, we're going to force us from all being one and integrated into being segregated once again, and creating us groups, in groups and out groups, us versus them. That's exactly what these things end up fostering. And you can see, look, they're talking about, okay, we've got people, we've got a Sikh, we've got a Muslim, we've got a redhead, somebody who looks, well, probably trans, I don't know, and an older Asian lady. Okay, great. But these, talking about culture, talking about reflecting the stories, right? So, okay, look, we've got a strong woman, and we've got some brown people. So that's great. It's going to be really, really great. And then we have these community organizations, which you can join in order to boycott things you don't like. Remember, these community organizations were key behind the revolt against Chapek and them trying to promote the anti-grooming bill. And I call it that because, listen, I feel like I feel like I've got to reset the balance of the force with all this inaccurate description of the Parental Rights and Education Bill as the Don't Say Gay bill. So obviously you see transparency, accountability, and worst of all is what comes at the bottom here. And this is Disney. So before we get over, obviously, this is the nightmare here. First of all, look at those eyes. Look at those dead, scary eyes there on Latondra Newton. She is their senior vice president, their chief diversity officer. So let me just understand. This person is actually sitting at the same table as the CEO, the CFO, the chief legal counsel, everybody else. They're bringing this chief diversity officer, this C-suite officer at the same table as all these folks. And when you bring in somebody here at this job, their entire job is to create issues at your corporation. To justify their existence, they need to create issues. And what's up, Brandon? Hello from NYC. Good to see you, my brother. Good to see you. You need to head out to Chiang Mai so we can hang out. All right. So yeah, it does look like Oprah, guys. Not gonna lie. So this Latondra, right, when she says, at Disney, we amplify underrepresented voices and untold stories to champion a multitude of perspectives, recognizing that we are all greater than a single story and we deserve to feel heard, seen, and understood. As if that wasn't happening before, and as if you need to see somebody's skin tone in order to understand their story. That is, in fact, the most racist thing I've heard in my life. It's completely bigoted. I can see myself in somebody else's story, whether they're white, black, brown, whatever they are, even if they're an alien. I read stories, sci-fi stories growing up about aliens, and I identified with them. What the hell does that mean? So this political commissar, as you said, Robert Griffin, I agree with that one. All they're going to do is go through and create trouble, create issues. So what is Chick-fil-A copying from Disney here? They're copying this entire strategy. So they talk about starting off their corporate purposes to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that is entrusted to us, to have a positive influence on all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. That's great. And honestly, I've met some Chick-fil-A workers that are awesome. Some lovely girls over there in Orlando or in Celebration, where I would go get my Chick-fil-A sandwich every day. I've said that a million times. I love the sandwich. It's great. I love the waffle fries. I got Chick-fil-A sauce that was imported. We have 0 Chick-fil-A's in Korea. I got Chick-fil-A sauce in my fridge. I like Chick-fil-A food. It's great. But the reason why I'm not doing it is because I truly believe they need to purge this from their system and they need to get this out, because every single organization I've seen adopt these policies ends up tearing themselves out for the inside. Now, they do not focus yet on LGBT stuff, but that doesn't mean they won't be forced to in the future. We're going to get to that. We're definitely going to get to that. And let's get to some of these super chats. So PA Grunt says, don't have an issue with the diverse workforce. Don't have an issue with inclusion in the workforce as long as they do their jobs. But I do have a problem with equity, which is not equality. PA Grunt, this is entirely the point. They want equity. They do not want equality, and they do not want inclusion. There's no problem with inclusion. Most workforces are already inclusive. I have never worked at a company that does not have men, women, people of various races, nationalities, backgrounds working there. But the issue is when you feel like you need to give people power, right? So you need to say, okay, because you're in an underrepresented group, maybe it's the Latino group, maybe it's the Black group, maybe it's the women's group, despite the fact that they'll create these women's groups and the majority of workers at the workplace will be women, for example. So they're not even really a minority, but they say, okay, now you've got power to, dictate everything over the workforce. And is that equality? No, that's giving a group power over everybody else. It's despotic. DeSantis is the Bud Light of the political world. Appreciate y'all. And yes, this is live, guys. This is live because my premiere did not work out. But yes, they don't want diversity of thought. That is very, very, very true. So over here, starting out, this starts out nice. It starts out good. It starts out with good intentions. But the road to good intentions leads straight to damnation. And when I saw this and I scrolled down And, I passed this big block of text and saw they've got Eric McReynolds, VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is where I know they will have a problem. And this is where I'm telling you right now, Chick-fil-A's problems are going to come from Eric McReynolds. He is going to create issues for them because he needs to justify his job. Everybody at work is self-interested. And he is going to need to start stuff and say, hey, look, we're having a problem. We're not representing our T's well enough. We're not representing our L's and G's and B's enough. They're going to push this on the corporation, and they're going to force them to change their stance, because now that they've adopted this policy, they're going to be at risk if they only selectively apply that. You see, they've chosen to elect a policy, and now that they've chosen to elect it, they've got to equally apply it. That's where they're going to end up getting in trouble, because they're going to end up with some bi employee, some trans employee, or gay employee who's going to say, hey, I wasn't equally treated under this policy. They're going to get sued and they'll probably lose, right? So he talks about, Chick-fil-A being modeled as a place where people care about each other. And look, I get that. Caring about each other, dignity, respect, that's great. That's great. But that's going to take away from this company. And what's really sad is this is not a publicly traded company. So this is not because they want the woke bucks. This is not because they want the woke funding. This is literally because they chose to go this way. And I know why they chose to go this way. They chose to go this way to limit their liability. They chose to go this way because they didn't want to get sued. They don't want to be the odd man out. However, this is ultimately going to be their downfall. Because of that, they're going to end up with more lawsuits that they were trying to prevent. They're saying, oh, well, let's do this to prevent it, but they're going to end up with more than they would have had before. It's the whole issue with, adopting the policies which protect an employee, might protect an employee's right to that job or right against discriminatory practices. Well, then that employee that fits that category will feel like they're entitled to their job, which under the law, if you're in an at-will work state, you're not entitled to your job. I, by the way, think that's a good thing because you can leave at any time you want. Employer can make you leave at any time you want. I think it's fine. So let's get down to what this means, right? So here's some of the language you guys need to be careful of, and you can see it here. Chick-fil-A's commitment to being better together means embedding diversity, equity, yes, I'll say it again, equity and inclusion in everything we do. In everything we do. That's going to come back around. Ensuring equal access, as if this was not existing already. Equal access is the law. If you are not providing equal access, if you are being discriminatory, whether in your business practices or in your hiring practices, you are already committing a violation under US law. You don't need a DEI policy to ensure equal access. This is complete bullshit. This is not the 1960s. This is not this is not 1840. We're not in the same era that was happening before. If you're not following these laws, you're already going to be in deep shit. This is going to be a big issue. And guys, I'm passionate about this. I've been really good. My last videos, I haven't been cursing. So pardonnez-moi. I'm a little pumped up about this one. Then going to valuing differences. Our similarities and differences strengthen us. Okay, that's fine. But if you're valuing those differences by forcing them upon people who don't want them, for example, by forcing LGBTQ principles on otherwise Christian employees, or how about Muslim employees? How about just conservative employees that don't like that don't agree with that lifestyle? How about just people that just say, I don't think that's okay. I don't think it's great. You're now forcing that on them? Or forcing them, by the way, even if you're doing it racially, because people might say, oh, well, race isn't as bad as gender. Well, okay, that might be your personal opinion. But listen, if we're going into talking about reparations, if we're going to talk about, for example, the infamous video of shining the black man's shoes. If you guys haven't seen that one, check that out. Chick-fil-A and the shining of the shoes. That was a while ago. And repenting over slavery. That was a while back. But no, we should not have to repent over slavery. We should not have to shine anybody's shoes. We don't owe anybody anything, particularly those of us whose family may or may not even have been in this country at that time, or may have been fighting for the North, which, listen, if anything, we deserve a thank you for that. Where's the thank? If we're gonna talk about both ways, where's the thank you for those men and women that died to end that practice? Just saying. Just saying. This video has been a clip of a previous live stream, and it's clipped so you can get the information in a shorter, compact package, the information you need. If you want the full video, the whole context, the whole thing, you can check out the full stream. That is in the link below. Check that out, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.